Spring training rolls along and the Mets injuries continue to pile up, specifically in the starting rotation. So today we're going to talk about a couple of trades that David Stearns could pull off to improve the outlook of that group. But before we go any further, today is February 25th, which means that we are exactly 30 days away from opening day. There are a lot of players that we could have went with for this one, specifically Nolan Ryan, the second player ever to wear number 30 for the orange and blue. But instead, we are going to go with somebody that I grew up watching and really adored, and that is outfielder Cliff Floyd. Floyd signed a 4-year deal with the team in 2002. His best year was probably 2005 when he clubbed 34 home runs and drove in 98 RBIs, helping the Mets to an 83-79 record, really kind of moving them over that hump going into 2006 and becoming a playoff team. Injuries definitely dampened his career as a Met, but I have very fond memories of Floyd with the team. That little pump with his right elbow as he got ready to unleash a vicious swing, and he was always a perennial power threat while he was a member of the team. So today's countdown is 30 and Cliff Floyd. But injuries, the topic of today, because the Mets have experienced them early on here in camp, specifically to their starting rotation. A couple weeks ago was Frankie Montas, and then yesterday we heard about Manaea having an oblique strain that will sideline him for at least 1 to 2 weeks, and he will begin the season on the injured list. So it opens up the conversation. Should the Mets look at the starting trade market and try to get a guy like Dylan Cease, who's been on the rumor mill, or maybe even Jordan Montgomery? Today, I'm going to tell you how the Mets could trade for either of them. So Dylan Cease has been the topic of trade rumors this entire offseason. Part of that because the Padres ownership is going through turmoil. So package number one, this one is filled with major league ready talent and prospects, in which the Mets get Dylan Cease, and going back to San Diego would be David Peterson, Brett Beatty, and Ronnie Mauricio. So Beatty came up a couple years ago, but unfortunately just hasn't found consistency at the big league level. You couple that with Mark Viento's breakout party at third base last year and his heroics throughout the postseason, and it's really tough to see exactly where he fits in with this organization long term. So if the Mets don't want to trade David Peterson or Ronnie Mauricio, here is another option to acquire Dylan Cease, and that would involve sending Jet Williams and Luis Angel Acuna to San Diego to land the Padres ace. There's probably no prospect in the Mets system that's more divisive than Luis Angel Acuna. There's one side of camp that says he's going to be just like his brother, and then there's the other side that says he's an undersized guy who probably won't ever hit for enough power and doesn't really have a position. For me personally, if that was the asking price to get a guy like Dylan Cease, despite just having one more year of control, I'd have to pull the trigger on that trade. And then one last trade, this one including some MLB-ready players, and that would be the Mets sending Jeff McNeil, Tyler McGill, and Dom Hamill to San Diego to acquire Dylan Cease. Jeff McNeil first debuted with the big league club in 2019, and it's been a bit of a roller coaster ride ever since. With Luis Angel Acuna and Ronnie Mauricio ready to step in and get reps in the middle infield, I've been a proponent for a long time now that trading Jeff McNeil would probably be the best idea if it meant improving other positions on this roster. Tyler McGill was solid last year in September and in the playoffs, but is he a guy that we're really comfortable with as our fourth or as our fifth starter right now? And Dom Hamill was once a promising prospect for this team. A couple years ago was MLB.com's number 15 prospect for the Mets, but he's definitely lost some luster. So if you're asking me, I would definitely make this trade of Jeff McNeil, Tyler McGill, and Hamill if it meant getting a frontline starter like Dylan Cease for the rotation. There's also another starting pitcher out in the NL West who may be available for a trade, and that is left-hander Jordan Montgomery. So this trade is very similar to what the Mets would have to send back to San Diego for Dylan Cease. We're talking about a guy with only 1 year of control and a guy who maybe seems disgruntled with his current organization. So Luis Angel Acuna would be the feature of that package. Considering he only played a couple games at the big league level last year, he also has defensive versatility at both middle infield positions and out in center field. Unfortunately, the Mets would probably have to pick from a weakness and send David Peterson as a part of this trade. Look, Peterson was solid last year, and I would love for the Mets to keep him. And I hate to trade away from a shortcoming of the team's roster already. But if you're looking at this trade for Montgomery, that's probably what Arizona is going to be looking for, especially a team that fell just one game short of the wild card last year behind the New York Mets themselves. But the D-backs may not be so interested in a trade for David Peterson, who hasn't exactly filled out his resume as a frontline starting pitcher. With injury concerns, consistency issues, he's only got another year or two of control. So I want to hear from you guys. Let me know in the comment section below. Should the Mets try to bolster the rotation with a trade for Dylan Cease or Jordan Montgomery? And would you be willing to trade Jet Williams, David Peterson, or Luis Angel Acuna to do so? 30 days away from opening day. Let's go Mets.